Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. I have a very special guest with us today who I actually have known a little bit, didn't realize it for a while. I have some family connections to his. His brother is a very good friend of my son's, and his father sent me a podcast of Josh Thifault. He's the senior director of Turning Point USA. He's been with them for 11 years. Personally, has known Charlie Kirk for all that time. And so he did a phenomenal job on this podcast. And I thought, well, I wonder if we could get him on. And he was very gracious to come on. I know he's very busy with all the things exploding at Turning Point right now, with all the requests and all the media attention. But Josh Thifault is with us today. Josh, thank you for joining us. And tell us a little bit maybe about yourself and how you came to be a part of Turning Point all those years ago.
Absolutely. I was at a Tea Party rally in Ohio back in 2014 with another political group. It was kind of my part-time job during college. Wasn't that inspiring. It was actually a big nationally known group that I had been pitching internally on doing more youth outreach for. And the same answer kept coming back to me. It's not really worth it to reach out to the young people. Obama's completely dominating the generation. Let's focus on older Americans. Let's focus on middle-aged Americans. I mean, the youth is a lost cause. So I was very uninspired, and I was excited to get out of politics pretty soon. This Tea Party rally was one of the last events I was going to as part of this job. I was doing my senior year of college at Cedarville University.
Sure.
And guess who the keynote speaker was at this Tea Party rally?
Was it Charlie?
It was Charlie, who had just started Turning Point USA in a garage in Lamont, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And he gave this wild, outlandishly ambitious pitch to the room to create a future where it's cool to be a young conservative, where our political leaders actually want to engage in culture, essentially packaging these eternal truths that are the conservative movement in such a way that a 19-year-old would be attracted to them. He was the first person in my life who had ever spoken about that as if it could be a real possibility. I mean, take yourself back to 2014. Barack Obama was the Michael Jordan of American politics. And young people, even on a campus as conservative as Cedarville, they either liked him a lot or they didn't hate him that much. They saw him kind of as a civil rights leader, even if we don't necessarily agree with him or see eye to eye. But Charlie, he was so ambitious. He had so much faith that this was something we could do. He walked up to me after his speech and said, "Josh, I don't know what you have planned or what you have going on, but you should drop everything and help me build this thing called Turning Point. It's going to change the country." And
wow. And how right he was.
In typical Charlie Kirk fashion, he then texted me over and over again for several weeks until I said yes. And I'm so glad that I did. I mean, praise God. So through Turning Point, I met most of my best friends all around the country. At our end of year Turning Point event in 2017, our big national summit, I met my beautiful wife, Brenna Thifault, and it has just been a whirlwind. I'm so thankful that I said yes. I had a very different plan for my life, but fortunately God had an even better one. And then I look back to that speech often because the next 11 years after he called his shot, he made it happen. I mean, you look at the 2024 election, it was cool to be a young conservative in 2024. The MAGA hat was the most punk rock cool thing that a 19-year-old could do in the country. And the biggest problem that we had as an organization the last couple of years was finding venues big enough for all the students who wanted to come to our events. A lot of people are saying, why were you having these big outdoor events? Is that safe? We were having big outdoor events because we couldn't find venues big enough to contain the student interest. And Charlie also really loved the outdoor events because of the people who accidentally would show up. And there are no accidents with God, but there could be some militant atheist leftist who's just walking to the library, and on the walk to the library, he has to accidentally hear Charlie Kirk make his 30-minute pitch for the pro-life movement or the gospel in 30 seconds. And that was changing a lot of people's lives. The digital version of that was also happening. You want to take a guess at how many views online Charlie and Turning Point had in the year leading up to his death?
No, yeah, I have no idea. It was millions, hundreds of millions.
Roughly 10 billion with a B. 10 billion views with over half of that on TikTok. And there aren't 10 billion people in the world, so we didn't reach
Right.
everyone in the world, but we reached every 19-year-old 3, 4, 500 times. So, and that's the way that culturally we moved the needle. You look at what the devil did in American culture over the last several
Hmm.
decades:
Hmm.
complete domination of the institutions,
Hmm.
domination of Hollywood, domination of the music industry, even watering down of a lot of Christian culture elements. I mean,
Hmm.
Christian music is kind of in a period of renaissance now, but it certainly wasn't the last couple of
Right.
decades.
Right.
Uh, and truth just did not have a seat at the cultural table. And Charlie's dream was to change that. And that's why I'm thrilled that we're doing the American Halftime Show,
Hmm.
AmericanHalftimeShow.com, which will be the counter to the horrific decision by the Super Bowl organizers to put Bad Bunny up there, who isn't
Hmm.
even going to speak English and is going to talk about
Right.
a lot of really horrible things. So maybe it's actually good that it's going to be in Spanish, because any of the kids who have to unfortunately listen to that at some Super Bowl party, yeah, it's going to be better for them that they don't understand it. But I look at who we've become as an organization, and it's what Charlie always dreamed. What he would say all the time in meetings is, we're not a think tank, we're a battle tank. He
Hmm.
absolutely hated when organizations didn't care about the rubber meets the road tactics to actually win
Hmm.
hearts and minds, and instead focused on impressive things that the intellectual elite may care about, or impressive things that maybe only the donors will care about. And that's a lot of the DC conservative space. And
Hmm.
I don't need
Hmm.
to name names, I don't need to throw
Right.
rocks needlessly here. And that culture is beginning to change. It's very easy to raise a lot of money with white papers and with great ideas
Hmm.
and with fancy retreats, and very little tangible results, very little real engagement of the country. A perfect example of this was what we pulled off in 2024. How much have you heard about the Chase the Vote project from our political side, Turning Point Action?
I have not heard much, but Jeff, my producer, and I were just talking about Chase the Vote in one of the races that are coming up soon in Virginia. So go ahead.
Amazing. So I'd like to say that we're geniuses, but the reality is somebody defected from the Soros side. So one of the bad guys spoke to some of the people in the conservative movement about what they were doing very effectively over the past few cycles, which was throwing the kitchen sink at low propensity vote chasing.
Hmm.
So pursuing somebody who's voted one time in the last 20 years for a Democrat, with the type of high level sales tactics you would expect from your local Mercedes dealership. Handwritten notes, people are
Hmm.
calling you, people are texting you, they're offering you perks, they're saying Merry Christmas. And the reason why they did that was because they posited correctly that if they were able to get a lot of those people out who almost never come out, but when they do, it's for their side, then that's just extra votes in the tally, which means that you should overperform the polls. So a lot of the Democrat numbers you've been seeing in battleground states for the last several cycles were not the actual numbers in the district. That's
Hmm.
with the overperformance of Democrats baked in from tens of millions of dollars worth of low prop vote chasing. So we had the idea to do it ourselves. We went on a very ambitious, extraordinarily large capital raise for this a couple of years ago on our political side, with the pitch that we were going to hire thousands of full-time bodies to do 4 to 6 month lead time, low prop vote chasing in person. So the way that this would work is you hire a full-time ballot chase rep, and they have a Rolodex of 4 or 500 low prop voters they're responsible for in a very small area outside of Phoenix. And it is their job to knock on their door and bring them cookies and learn their dog's name.
Hmm.
And I mean, number one, cleanse the data and make sure that that person actually lives there, figure out what issues they care about. And once you have some type of real personal relationship, then drive them to the polls at the very start of early voting to bank their vote. Worst case scenario, if you're not successful, you can try again on election day. So we did this at an extraordinary scale. We chased over 300,000 votes in Arizona and Wisconsin alone with this, more than the margin of victory in both states. And I tell this story because it illustrates the way that most of the conservative nonprofit infrastructure has worked up to this point. Nobody wanted to spend tons of money chasing low prop votes
Hmm.
because the numbers on the surface don't look really good. You're spending a
Hmm.
ton of money per vote. It
Hmm.
is much easier to raise a lot of money, go after the 3 out of 4 and 4 out of 4 super voters, people who vote in 3 out of 4 elections, 4 out of 4 elections, people like you, people like me,
Hmm.
and then chase their vote, demonstrate that you knocked on their door, demonstrate that you sent them a text
Hmm.
message, and then report to your donors, report to your board, report to your investors. Oh, by the way, we chased 227,000 votes in the state, more than the margin of victory. What was being missed was out of those 227,000, like 218,000 were going to vote if you didn't
Right.
spend $20 million in the state.
Right.
So there was a massive disconnect in how capital was being deployed compared to the focus on was it moving the needle towards victory. So we went all in on this. We were the first conservative group to ever do it at that scale. And thankfully, we got a lot of public credit for being responsible for a few of the states we won. Very thankful that the president's team put a lot of trust in us. So that was a rabbit trail I didn't plan on going on.
No, it's actually very good because I've worked on over 2 dozen state house campaigns in Indiana, and I can tell you, they always say do the opposite of that. That doesn't even come up. It's usually, okay, go through the voter rolls. They have things like I-360 and these programs, and go after people who are pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family, pro-school choice, who voted 3 or 4 times. And if you haven't voted in the primary recently, the chances of you getting a mailing piece is very low because they think, oh, well, those people will never vote. And what you're saying is those people still have those values. We just have to give them a reason to vote, and we're not giving them a reason to vote if we don't reach out to them. But it's times if it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of effort, and so you guys actually went into this upside down what the political consultants are saying to do.
100%. And it looks on the surface like you're getting poor ROI because
Hmm.
you can show that you're getting X number of dollars per vote in a way that looks very impressive if you're only chasing frequent voters who are going to vote
Right.
most likely anyway. So, what Charlie brought to the table and the culture he instilled at Turning Point on the political side and on the educational side was a constant challenge for us to question the status quo and do things that work, not just do things that look
Hmm.
like they work. And don't get me wrong, it's very easy to raise a lot of money doing things that look like they work. But
Right.
Charlie was obsessed with moving the needle. He was obsessed with moving the needle when I met him in 2014. He was obsessed with moving the needle. One of the last times we ever spoke, which was a few weeks before he passed, when we were talking about his big dream to put Club America chapters, which are the Turning Point USA high school chapters,
Hmm.
on almost every high school in the nation to create this inverse culture where instead of being a Christian conservative who's scared that when your kid goes to high school, that when your kid goes to college, they're going to be indoctrinated by the left, taught to hate the country, taught to hate God, taught not to respect their parents, taught not to believe the Bible. Instead, he wanted to create an inverse culture where, let's say that you're a leftist parent and you're scared that your kid is going to go to high school and learn about
Right.
Jesus and go to high
Yep.
school and learn about
Yep.
America and go to high school and learn about these eternal truths. And that's what's so wild about what I've seen progress over the last month. We were talking about that in kind of a 4 to 5 year window. That's what we were going for. Let me find a way to silence my laptop here. We were going for this in a 4 to 5 year window, and everything that happened has now led to an opportunity for us to do it in a year or two because we had 120,000 requests to start a chapter in the weeks
Wow.
following his death. 120,000 people want to
1,000.
start Turning
Wow.
Point chapters.
Well, Josh, one of the things that as you've been talking, I've thought this off and on for years. Um, when you're 16, 17, 18, 20, in your early 20s, you have something hardwired in you that you want to rebel. You want to break away from your parents, or you want to. What's ironic is most young people are not really rebelling. They're conforming to the culture. If you really want to be a rebel, if you really want uh, be sexually pure, don't do drugs, don't drink, don't go to parties. Like Charlie said, get married, have kids. Those are really the countercultural people. Those are in the 60s, the countercultural people were supposedly the hippies. Well, now if you want to be a rebel today, if you do everything the liberal schools teaching, you're just conforming to the culture. But if you really want to rebel, It's actually being a conservative. And there must be some type of appeal to kids who are seeing, hey, I can either go along with this downstream sewer trail, or I can actually stand for something and really make a difference.
And you just described exactly what happened culturally over the past couple of years and is continuing to happen. And I love that you brought up the hippie movement because that was a backlash to a lot of Americans who looked at Christianity the wrong way. A lot of Americans looked at Christianity as this stifling, legalistic, lifeless thing where we're just supposed to check these boxes and then maybe we can go to heaven if all that stuff's for real, but you better be in church or you're not going to get an allowance. It was mostly rules, not relationship. And there were exceptions. There were great theologians, but it was a lot of rules and not a lot of relationship. And the backlash to that was the devil saw it as an opportunity to convince millions of people that they should just ignore the church, sleep with whoever they can, do all the drugs they can, and just dive headlong into hedonism. Because in their minds, that was the opposite of this stifling, legalistic, lifeless worldview that was being put on them in America. I look at what has happened the past few years, and it is also a backlash, but in a very different way. Godlessness in American society had become so prevalent that it became this crazy, insane, rebellious thing not to drink, not to do drugs, not to have sex with people before you get married. And out of that, you had this spirit of rebellion in a positive way that has led to what is now a revival in young America. It's a bona fide revival with young men. We're seeing the signs that it could expand beyond that, and I hope and pray that happens. A lot of that will now it will now be determined by the church. I look at the Charlie Kirk Memorial. It was seen by over 100 million people live streamed, which means that the clips were probably seen by somewhere between 1 and 2 billion people. So you have all these people who just heard about Jesus, but who's going to have the conversation with them? That's where the church comes in.
You know, one of the things that is interesting in the policy world is, and I think deep inside every person, young person, they really still want to be married. They want a successful marriage. They like to have kids. They want to be happy. They want purpose. And what the research actually shows is that those things are most often found in Christianity. And one of the most fascinating studies I've ever seen, it was a super large study out of the University of Chicago. And contrary to what most people would see in Hollywood or on TV or Netflix or in the culture around us, the most sexually satisfied people in America are actually religious conservatives. And if you think about it, if you do things God's way, God
I've seen multiple studies that affirm that, multiple studies.
Yeah. And so when you follow the manufacturer's book, much like you follow the manufacturer's book in your car runs longer and better. If you follow the scriptures, you actually, God loves us and wants us to thrive, and we do that.
And the best way I can describe it is think about everyone you know. I mean, almost everyone you know would love to have $1 billion. They'd love to be really wealthy. But how many people would love or even entertain doing the things it takes to build a really successful business? Yeah. It's the same thing with following God. It's the same thing with marriage. It's the same thing with basic self-discipline. It's the same thing with exercise. It's the same thing with eating right. You can want the reward at the end of the trail, but you have to learn to love being on the trail too. And that's where the relationship aspect comes in. You can tell a 19-year-old all day long, the Bible says if you do this and this and this and this, then you'll be happy and then you'll be wealthy and probably, and then you'll have lots of kids maybe, and you'll live a fulfilling life. Or you can say, there's a God who loves you. He created this. He created the whole world from nothing, ex nihilo. And Adam and Eve sinned, and they brought this curse on mankind. That's why everything's so awful. So all your atheist friends who are telling you God doesn't love you because kids can die and because people get cancer, and what type of God would create this? This wasn't God's original creation. This is what happened when darkness came in the world, when sin came in the world. He sent his son Jesus to die on the cross and to rise again from the grave. And everybody who confesses with their mouth that Jesus is Lord and believes in their heart that God raised him from the dead, they will be saved. You bring that message, and all of a sudden you're not just saying do this and this and this and this and you can live a good life. It puts it in cosmic terms,
Hmm.
And that is what God uses to then instill that desire in a 19-year-old to want to stop watching porn, stop drinking, stop doing drugs, stop
Hmm.
sleeping with somebody different every weekend. You can talk about the benefits all day long, but without talking about the relationship first,
Right.
I mean, these kids, it's like they have spiritual blinders on, and God
Yeah.
is the one who frees them from that. So they can
Well, let
want
me,
they can want the reward all day long, but they
yeah,
have to love the path. They have to love the
right.
things it takes to get there. And God is required for that. The cart cannot come before the horse.
Well, I want to ask you two more questions because I know you're busy. You're doing a lot of interviews right now. Um, and if you don't mind, this was in your in the podcast I heard. Could you briefly, maybe, if you don't mind, share Charlie's impact on your own life personally? Because that was fascinating to me. If you don't mind.
I would love to. I would love to. So Charlie was on, as far as our personal relationship, on an 11-year campaign to continually challenge me to be a better man. And there were so many big things in my life he convinced me to do. He convinced me to be more disciplined with my health. He convinced me to be more serious about my faith. He convinced me, along with, I got to give my wife some credit here. They both convinced me to stop drinking. And I wasn't an alcoholic. I drink
Right.
sometimes. I mean, Jesus made wine, but also biblical wine was very different. We don't have to go down
Yeah.
that rabbit
Right.
hole.
Right.
Charlie just spent 11 years, even as busy as he was, whenever he had time with me, he was just constantly challenging me to be
Hmm.
more serious about my faith and to become a better, stronger man. And that really continued up until the last time I saw him.
Hmm.
And I just, I appreciated it, but I didn't understand the breadth and the depth of his impact until he was gone.
Were you one of those who I'm hearing stories everywhere of people who were close to him and even farther out, where he would send them Bible verses, texts of a Bible verse almost every day.
He
I'm
he
hearing
he sent
testimonies
he
of.
sent me a lot of Bible verses, and it was kind of seemingly random, but sometimes
Uh,
it would be very timely. But yes, he
sure.
sent a lot of Bible verses, and I appreciate that very much.
Well, when we close here, as we're closing, I'd like to ask you, how can people learn about Turning Point, and maybe what specifically is your role there? And then, I guess the bigger question is, I've heard that there's been well over 800 requests in Indiana. It's probably even more than that for Turning Point chapters. If somebody's watching this and wants to get involved in Turning Point, um, what's the best thing for them to do?
So first off, if they want to start a Turning Point chapter, reach out directly to me so I can handle that
Okay,
quickly. Just because we got a lot of requests right now. We have amazing staff, but
sure.
there's 120,000 of them. Email Josh at tpusa.com. If you want to
Okay,
start a chapter in Indiana, high school, college, if you want to get your church involved, reach out to Josh at tpusa.com. Also, I want to invite anyone listening to an event. We're having a
okay.
huge rally at IU Bloomington, October 21st with Tucker Carlson. So that
Yes.
should be a lot of fun. We have thousands of people coming already. That's October 21st at IU. So send me an email about that as well if you'd like to attend, josh at tpusa.com. And then a little bit more about my role. So I started building a lot of our field operations in Ohio, then a lot of our field operations in Florida. And one of my friends, I was just telling him what we were doing, starting conservative chapters on Florida colleges. And he said, "Oh, that's cool. I want to write you a check." So I called Charlie and I'm like, "Okay, what is this? What do I do?" And he's like, "Well, take the check. It's called fundraising. You're in charge of it now." So I was our first fundraiser way, way, way back in the day.
Yeah,
And Charlie had me do a lot of things, but the last several years I've really focused on
sure.
our highest level fundraising, and that's been going really well. Praise God, and it continues to go well. It needs to, because I wouldn't be surprised if we have to dramatically increase the size of the organization over the next year
Yeah.
just to handle the level of demand that we have with students. So I'm excited to work with the great Erica Kirk to help
Yeah.
get that done all over the country.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for your time. If you still have it on your screen, can you repeat the IU Turning Point event again? Because Tucker Carlson gave one of the best speeches that of during the ceremony, I thought, um, as did Frank Turek, a big fan of his. But tell us about and so many others who spoke that day were great. But tell me the IU event one more time, if you could.
Absolutely. It'll be the afternoon, evening of October 21st at IU Bloomington. The general tickets are sold out. The student tickets are still available. If you want to get in, just shoot me an email. I'll get you all the info.
Okay.
Josh at
Well, we'll have info on
tpusa.com.
that down below. Josh
Yep.
at turningpointusa.com.
Yep. Josh at tpusa.com.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. Know you're busy. It's good to see you again. It's been a while, but I appreciate you joining us. Thank you for the great work you're doing, and God bless you and Turning Point USA. And I just appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to seeing you soon, Micah.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank
I
you.
hope you enjoyed that. This is a great renewal of what's happening since Charlie's passing. It's great to learn about the growth of Turning Point USA. And again, if you have students at IU, if you're a parent or grandparent, tell them about this event coming up on October 21st. And we can help get you tickets, maybe get your grandkids there or your kids there if they're students. But again, turningpointusa.org. Check them out. Josh at tpusa.org. And again, thank you for joining us. I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association of Indiana. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.